Hello everyone and welcome to Who Wore It Better, the weekly segment which I review Raw and Smackdown back to back and try to figure out which show won for the week. It's been 1 week now since I last shaved my face. Ladies. Raw begins with Roman Reigns making his way to the ring, and he cuts either a very badly written face promo or an awesomely written delusional heel promo where he says, I can't be beaten one-on-one. Just ask literally everyone who's beaten me one-on-one. He then announces himself as the #1 contender for the Universal Championship at SummerSlam, so he'll be facing either Lesnar or some guy named Joe, in Roman Reigns' words. And his reasoning as to why he's the #1 contender now, like I called this last week, his reasoning is because it's his yard. Samoa Joe interrupts and says Roman's never beaten him one-on-one. Roman says at the end of the day, he'll only be just Joe. They have a brief scuffle. Roman comes out on top of the scuffle. Joe powders out, and they make a match for later in the night between the two. After a short and sweet match between the Hardys and Anderson and Gallows, we cut to, in my opinion, the best, strongest Goldust promo we've had yet since he turned heel on R-Truth. He says he's going to be flying into LA next week on Wings of Gold and invites R-Truth to the premiere screening of his new feature, The Shattered Truth. And then R-Truth has a rebuttal later on in the night, and so yeah, I'm really looking forward to this first confrontation between the two since they broke up. Finn Balor takes on Bo Dallas, aka Skinny Bray Wyatt, in singles action. The match is pretty short and to the point. Bo gets a lot of aggression early on. I loved his running knee to the head against the barricade early on. He ultimately falls to Finn Balor, which provides some foreshadowing for later in the night. After being announced as the cover boy for WWE 2K18, Seth Rollins makes his way to the ring and says, this is our cover. It's a cover you can believe in. The people's cover. Make video game covers great again. Okay, none of that stuff at the end he said was actually true. But the first thing was, he gets a "You Deserve It" chant from the crowd, which actually might be one of the best applications of that chant in WWE in a long time. Bray Wyatt interrupts him on the big screen. He says that Seth has become vain and conforming to what these people want him to be. Seth counters by saying, well, you call yourself a god? Well, gods only exist in our minds, which is a pretty ballsy thing for someone to write on WWE TV, for someone to say. Bray says it's time to make a sacrifice. He says, I'm here because my wife kicked me out of the house. And so he makes his way down to the ring. When he blows the lantern out, the lights come back up. Seth is already on the top rope waiting for him. Big jumping attack, big crossbody. Somehow the impact, Seth cuts his face. He's got a cool little action wound, and that's how the segment ends. Seth stands tall. So yeah, I mean, it was a good way to keep progressing the feud they have going on without turning into some kind of tag match. Backstage, Finn Balor is being interviewed about the Roman Reigns Samoa Joe match. Before he can make his prediction, he is attacked from behind by Elias Samson, who I forgot to mention, Elias was in the ring doing his shtick before being interrupted by Finn Balor during his entrance for the Bo Dallas match. So they're planting the seeds earlier on, and so this is the culmination of that. Elias jumping Finn from behind. So now we have this program happening between Finn and Elias Samson. I think Samson's going to benefit from this because it's going to give him more credibility. He just came off of this nice little mini program with Dean Ambrose where he looked good. So now working with Finn Balor is going to be even better for his resume. As far as Finn goes, I wouldn't see this as like a demotion or a waste of his time because I think the main event scene right now on Raw is so just jam-packed. There's no room for there's not enough room for everybody. So a lot of people have to kind of do their own thing. You got Seth and Bray fighting. You know, you got Roman Reigns kind of like lurking in the shadows while Samoa Joe's doing his thing. So yeah, Finn is kind of the odd man out here, but I think working with Elias is going to be a good thing overall. Samoa Joe versus Roman Reigns. This was, in my opinion, the match of the night. Joe looking very physical and dominant for the first portion of the match. Roman eventually getting his second wind, hits Joe with the Superman punch. Joe kicks out. Joe hits the Uranagi on Roman. Roman kicks out. Joe goes to the Coquina clutch. Roman pushes his way out of it, hits Joe with a spear. Joe kicks out, which is a great look for Joe because not everyone does that. Roman's going for a second spear. All of a sudden you hear the beeping sound, the backing up sound of an ambulance. So it cuts to the backstage. The ambulance is backing up. The doors open, and it's Braun Strowman. He goes, "Bleh!" And it was simultaneously the most awesome and hilarious sight I've ever saw. Just the big pop for Braun coming out of the ambulance, then making that noise. It made me laugh. It was just a really awesome moment. After the distraction, Joe locks Roman in the Coquina clutch. Roman fights it for a minute, starts passing out. The referee checks the arm once, rings the bell. Samoa Joe wins yet again. And of course, next week, Roman's going to say, I still can't be beat one-on-one, guys. I'm going to bring this up because I know it was mentioned a lot in the comments section of the Extreme Rules review, and it's probably going to be asked here again, is why did the referee not check the arm 3 times in the submission, like it happened at the end of the Extreme Rules match. Finn was in it, checks the arm once, rings the bell. I think they're doing away with that spot because it's kind of an old school trope, and they're trying to incorporate, more shoot style elements into their wrestling style now. Because, no MMA referee is going to check the arm 3 times and then wait for the third where they go, out of it, because it's so fake, and by that point they're dead. So yeah, I can get why they've kind of done away with that spot. I can get why it's jarring to some viewers who are watching because they're so used to that. They're used to the 3-arm drop, and the third one they start hulking up. But it doesn't really have a place in today's style of WWE anymore. After the match, Braun Strowman comes out, hits Roman with the reverse chokeslam, and challenges him to an ambulance match at Great Balls of Fire, which should be another barn burner. I said at the beginning when Strowman was out with injury that I didn't think he'd be out for a full 6 months. I thought that prognosis, that return date was bogus from the beginning because they always kind of fudge those numbers. So he comes back looking stronger than ever before because he beats the doctor's diagnosis. He's a superhuman. He's invincible. So that being said, I think it's great to see Braun Strowman back. I think Raw in the weeks he's been gone has left a huge void without him. So I'm really excited to see Braun Strowman back, and I look forward to the ambulance match. Miz TV with special guest Maurice. The Miz has been in the doghouse the last couple of weeks, having ruined Maurice's grandfather clock gift and having bumped her off the apron accidentally during last week's tag team match. So he has a big present in the ring, 2 dancing bears at his side, and he brings Maurice out. She comes out to her old wrestling theme, which was a nice piece of continuity, and the Miz profusely apologizes to Maurice. He gifts her back the grandfather clock that he fixed himself with YouTube videos, so that was kind of a funny visual. And so they're just about to kiss and make up. Dean Ambrose interrupts, and Miz is trying to put Maurice in front of him again, but she's got the champagne glass in her hand, and she seizures up and throws it in her own face. So that was pretty funny. Then the Miz is tossed into the grandfather clock, knocking it down and breaking it again. Maurice is mad and storms off, and so then they have a scuffle, Miz and Ambrose do, and Ambrose wins the scuffle. Then the dancing bears jump Ambrose from behind, they unmask, and it's Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel. Now, earlier in the night, after Bo lost to Finn Balor, and then backstage, the Miz is approaching the two of them saying, hey, you were awesome in the Marine 5, out now on DVD, you should be part of my entourage. So this was kind of the confirmation of that. They're now part of the Miz's entourage. I guess the rumors I've been reading are that they're writing Maurice off TV because the gimmick they have is too similar to Mike and Maria Kanellis on Smackdown, which, if that's the case, why on earth would you give Mike and Maria Kanellis this gimmick when the established one's already there, and then why would you punish the original one for being too similar to the new gimmick on SmackDown? Doesn't make any sense to me. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, but if that's the case, anyway, here you have now Bo and Curtis Axel with The Miz, which is good for them because TV time is good. My one critique about this segment was, why did the Bears wait so long to attack Dean Ambrose? Why didn't they just attack him immediately when they got in the ring to defend him? He's they're his entourage. That's what entourages do. I'm just trying to fast forward through the rest of the third hour because for the most part, there's not a lot worth talking about. Sheamus and Cesaro taking on Titus O'Neil and Apollo Crews in a who cares match. This match didn't need to happen. Neither side benefited from this thing. I think there was more character development with Titus earlier on when he was at Akira Tozawa's corner against TJP, which, by the way, was a fine cruiserweight match because there was a whole thing with Neville and Akira Tozawa, and Titus is trying to push Akira toward the Cruiserweight Championship, and there's that. I think there could have been some great integration with that storyline happening here because this one had no heat. Hype package for Lesnar and Joe going into Great Balls of Fire. It was a fine hype package. I love the line where Lesnar goes, I'm going to go through Joe like a freight train on fire. All I could think of was saying, with balls? Then the women's clusterfuck. You had Sasha Banks and Nia Jax with Alexa Bliss on commentary. They quickly break down as Emma chases Alexa into the ring, and then more women run in the ring. Bayley comes in there. The faces clean house. Michael Cole can't even finish his sentence before they rush to break because they're running so heavy on time. This is a segment that didn't need to happen in the first place, and when they're heavy on time, why not just cut it? Finally, the show ends with Kurt Angle in the ring. He's been trying all night to crack the case of who was attacking Enzo and Cass for the last several weeks. Enzo and Cass come out, the potential suspects, the Revival, and Big Show come out. Big Show denies everything, is offended that Kurt would accuse him as being a suspect. He storms off. The Revival said they didn't do it. They have alibis. So really, nothing is resolved here. So Angle's work has been kind of futile until Corey Graves stands up from the announce desk and plays security footage from last week showing that Cass basically laid himself out. He laid down and acted as if he was hurt when he actually wasn't injured. So then Corey Graves says it was Big Cass who was attacking Enzo. Then Cass says, you're damn right I did. And he goes into a whole tirade on Enzo. And he basically parroting all the things that Corey Graves has been saying for months about the two. Cass says that for years, Enzo's been holding him back. He's always been fighting Enzo's battles because his mouth is writing checks, his ass can't catch. We cut to a close-up of Enzo and we get real Enzo tears falling down his face. The crowd is chanting, "What?" which I thought kind of killed the vibe. Cass says that they're through, boots Enzo in the face, and that's how the show ends. Really kind of cool way to end the whodunit angle, even though it was predictable that Cass did it, but the way they went about it and the way Cass kind of explained himself, I thought was perfect heel stuff. Boy, Raw sure loves breaking up tag teams, don't they? They broke up Jericho and Miz at the top of the year. They broke up the Golden Truth. They're breaking up Enzo and Cass, which is one of the more over tag teams. Now, what face tag teams do you have on Raw? Because you got rid of Golden Truth, you got rid of Enzo and Cass. Who do you have as face? The Hardys? Before I talk about Smackdown and everything that happened therein, I do want to go back a bit to my Money in the Bank review and my thoughts on the finish of the women's ladder match. By the end of that review, I was very much on the fence about how I felt about it. Like, oh, it's great heel heat, but also it's like, just the ending kind of left a weird taste in my mouth. Oh, James Ellsworth getting involved and doing it all the work. You know, I was 50-50 on it. But then I slept on it and I realized, you know what? Like, this is actually good. I'm 100% in favor of what they did after this. You know, it's like great heel heat, gets people talking. You know, she's a heel, it's heel stuff. And, you know, they do touch on all these sentiments and these feelings and emotions and reactions later in the show. And I think that was good stuff by them. But yeah, by the end of it, I was like, yeah, okay, this was a good thing. Smackdown begins with Carmella and James Ellsworth making their way to the ring. Now, Carmella hasn't had a lot of opportunities to cut promos by herself, much less any with real weight to them. So to say that this was her best promo on Smackdown, it's not saying much, but it was still a very impressive promo, one of her best. In regards to the haters, she says, who cares? You know, who cares that Ellsworth helped me? There's precedent to this. People have helped before. You know, she's defending herself, saying she's come up from being the last woman drafted to SmackDown. She's not caring about making history. She's caring about securing her future. Really passionate promo by Carmella. She made a lot of valid points. Like I said, it was the best she's done on the main roster. And honestly, this 1 5-minute segment with this one woman talking blew Raw's women's segment out of the water. Big E taking on Jimmy Uso in singles action. Not much to say about this match. It's obviously a continuation of their feud going on for Money in the Bank. The Usos try and walk off like they did at the pay-per-view, but Kofi hits Jay with a trust fall. They bring Jimmy back into the ring. Big E hits the big ending and wins the match with the New Day. Naomi's being interviewed about what happened in the women's ladder match on Sunday. She's interrupted by Lana, who wants a rematch for the women's championship because she was distracted by Carmella on Sunday, and Naomi gives her the match. Now, I find it very interesting that Lana comes in to SmackDown, and Shane tells her you have to earn your opportunities. Now she will have had 2 singles matches in 3 weeks, and 2 of them are for the women's championship. It's mind-boggling. Tom Phillips interviews Randy Orton in a pre-taped segment. Randy says that because Jinder Mahal and the Singhs messed with his family at Money in the Bank, that he wants to go to India and drop RKOs on all of Jinder's, relatives and everything, which I find very interesting. Randy would take such offense to someone going after his family when he made his name off punting John Cena's dad and members of the McMahon-Helmsley family. Dolph Ziggler taking on Shinsuke Nakamura for the first time ever on SmackDown Live. Obviously, it's a rematch from like a month ago at Backlash, but I think this match was more enjoyable to watch for me. I think it was a more entertaining match overall because I think there's less pressure on them than there was on Backlash. This one felt more loose. It felt more impactful. Entertaining match overall. Dolph Ziggler was going for the sleeper. Shinsuke snapmares out of it. Big kick to the back of the head. Kinshasa. Shinsuke wins, of course. For the first time in a long time, Kevin Owens brings back the Face of America Open Challenge. He did this, months ago when he first made it to SmackDown. He fought some local jobber and beat him pretty quickly. So he has an open challenge. Anyone from Dayton, Ohio to come out. Dayton, Ohio. Dayton, Ohio. Out comes AJ Styles. So they talk for a minute, and then Chad Gable makes his way in. And first I thought, well, is he from Dayton? I forgot. I don't know. I forget. So he comes out and says, you're not from, and Kevin goes, you're not from Dayton. Oh, I just moved here. I moved to the address of this arena today. And so AJ is like, yep, checks out to me. Let's have this match. Why does AJ get to make this match? I don't get that. It was just so weird to me that this match was made on the premise of AJ Styles saying, it's cool. It checks out with me. This match, what we saw of it at least, was pretty entertaining. I loved Gable's rolling, bridging German suplex onto Owens. There's a kick out there. Owens recovers, hits him with a pop-up powerbomb, wins the match. Short and sweet match. Very interesting way to bring back American Alpha. Well, we haven't seen them for what feels like forever. And they come back, and it's not even a tag team capacity. It's like Chad Gable in singles. Because Jason Jordan showed up at the entrance and then bounced. Like, he wasn't there for the bulk of the thing. So, again, really weird thing to see Gable being brought back in this way. The Hype Bros make their case to Daniel Bryan that they should get the tag team title match they never received after Zack Ryder got injured in the match where they won the #1 contenderships. Daniel Bryan says, well, the tag team scene's changed a lot since you've been here. Yeah, for example, you don't see any tag teams anymore. So you can get a match of the tag titles if you beat the Usos in a non-title match next week. If you're going to have them fight the Usos next week, why not make it for the tag team titles? It makes no sense. You can have them fight literally any other tag team to earn their spot. Have them fight the Ascension. I don't care. Just do something. It makes no sense to have this non-title match, which they may or may not win and lead to an actual championship match. But again, if they're going to fight for the titles, don't have a non-title match before that. That made me mad. It's time for Daniel Bryan to make his decision regarding the controversial ending to the women's Money in the Bank ladder match. All the women come out to hear him make his case. Tamina's sporting a gigantic bruise on her arm. That thing looked gnarly. Daniel Bryan says, Carmella, made some good points. The rules were in her favor. Nothing says that James Ellsworth couldn't do that, but it is the first time someone grabbed the case, unhooked it, and gave it to somebody else to finish the match. James Ellsworth gets on the mic and talks trash to Daniel about his daughter. Daniel threatens him to beat him up if he talks about his daughter again. And this sets off a whole chain of events of everyone having a microphone and saying something mostly about James Ellsworth. It was a whole make fun of James Ellsworth night, really, just on the backstage segments before this, leading into the live segment. Everyone was piling on Ellsworth here. My favorite part is when Charlotte threatened Natalya, if you keep talking, I'm going to make you look like James Ellsworth. And then Tamina is next to the mic and says, to Charlotte, you keep talking, you're going to look like James Ellsworth. Which is, to a letter, the exact same thing Charlotte said. I want Tamina's new gimmick to be she just badly imitates and copies what other people say to like a terrible degree. That'd be so funny. So Daniel Bryan takes the briefcase away from Carmella, renders her victory from Sunday null and void, and makes a rematch. So it's a do-over. We're doing it all over again. Next week on Smackdown, another women's Money in the Bank ladder match. Ellsworth is banned from ringside, and I'm kind of upset about this. I think it's a wasted opportunity. I think that this was a good opportunity to give Carmella some serious heat. Like, she got away with murder, and she's rubbing it in everyone's faces, and she gets to carry the case around, and their hands are tied. They can't do anything about it because the rules are the rules, and the rules, there are no rules. So it makes no sense that when you consider over the years how many dumb things WWE has done that have weathered just constant barrage of criticism from fans. Case in point, they've been trying to push Roman Reigns as the main event guy for the last 3 years, and no one's been buying it. Meanwhile, they do this controversial finish for this women's match, and after a little bit of criticism and some pushback, they balk and they say, "Oh, we're going to do it over again." And some people will say, "Oh, it's good. They knew it was a bad decision. That's why they're doing it over." And maybe this is going to lead to some other kind of storyline. The fact they're doing it over, the fact they have to do 2 ladder matches in 2 weeks, I think is an enormous strain on the talent. If they were forced to do this, if their hands were forced, I think it's unfortunate. Even if I were upset with how Carmella won the match on Sunday, and even then I was at most mildly irked about it, I wouldn't want them to just do a do-over because they got some pushback. I think that's just annoying. I think it undoes everything they did on Sunday. It undoes, all the heat that Carmella got on herself in that promo at the top of the show. If she doesn't win next week, it's going to completely undo everything she said in that match, and it's going to make her look stupid. So yeah, all in all, I'm not a fan of them saying they're going to redo this next week for a number of reasons. One, it's undoing everything they did on Sunday. 2, you're further beating up the talent involved, having them do 2 ladder matches in 2 weeks. And 3, I think it just shows that they don't know what they want almost. So in the middle of all this, I forgot we had a main event. It was Jinder Mahal taking on Luke Harper in a title match, kind of like with American Alpha coming back from out of nowhere. Luke Harper being in this match, it's cool to see Luke Harper, but why is he here? What has he done to earn this non-title match to Jinder Mahal? It just kind of came from out of nowhere. I don't get it. And, Luke Harper looked good in this match. I think he looked very strong against Jinder. Ultimately, he was distracted by the Singh brothers, hit with a Khallas at the end for Jinder to win. Then Orton comes out and cleans house and chases Jinder Mahal away on his quest to RKO every Indian in India. But, it was just kind of weird to see Luke in that role. Great to see him, but it's kind of weird. Time now for me to decide who won for the week, Raw or Smackdown. Now, I was fully prepared to give Smackdown the win this week, simply on the basis of how abysmal Raw's third hour was. But then I watched Smackdown, and what's more upsetting? What's more head-scratching? The shitty third hour for Raw, or just the scatterbrained booking for Smackdown in its entirety? Just so many little details that left me scratching my head and going, this doesn't make sense, like quality control issues. I don't want to do another draw this week so soon after my last draw from a few weeks ago. People seem to get mad when I do draws, so there must be a winner this week. I am going to go with Smackdown because at least the matches they had were entertaining. Dolph and Shinsuke and Luke and Jinder and Kevin Owens and Gable. Even though there's a lot of questionable things like why does AJ get to make this match in the first place? At least Kevin Owens and Chad Gable was a decent match. Why does Lana get a rematch next week? I don't know. I loved Carmella's promo to death, but I hated how they undid it all by redoing the Money in the Bank for next week. I just don't like that. When the argument comes down to, no rules versus but history, why does the ladder win out? I don't get that. I'm still mad glad that they're going to redo Money in the Bank. And I swear to God, Carmella better win. With Raw, I liked Reigns versus Joe. I liked the return of Strowman after that. I thought that Enzo and Cass, their breakup segment, was really strong. And even though I didn't mention it in detail, I did enjoy the Tozawa TJP match. It was actually a really good cruiserweight match for Raw. It wasn't a 3-minute ditty. It was actually fleshed out. But yeah, that third hour, man, that was a tough grind. Miz TV, for the most part, I didn't really care for. The women's segment was a dumpster fire. Kill it if things are running heavy. Don't have this shitty segment that accomplishes nothing. And the tag team match, Cesaro and Sheamus and Titus and Apollo Crews, didn't need to exist. So I guess when it's all said and done, to me, 2 hours of programming with lots of pockmarks here and there is going to beat out 2 good hours of programming followed by 1 really shit hour. That's my opinion on it anyway. Let me know what you thought about Raw and SmackDown in the comments section below. Don't forget to vote which show you thought was better in the gimmick in the upper right hand corner of your screen. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regret. Buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com and check out the Patreon page, patreon.com/WrestlingWithRegret. 200 Patreon backers as of this recording. Thank you all so much for your support. It means the world to me. Go to check out the Patreon page if you haven't yet to check out what exclusive perks you can get for as low as $1 a month. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.